Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building the City of Van Buren in Clearwater County, and I think I have a good one for you. Today we are going to do something that is going to be incredibly complicated. I'm a little bit intimidated by the project. We're going to actually trench our rail line here all the way down here to get it underneath Mulligan Avenue. And this is going to be a project. We're going to be using some old assets, some new assets, using them in new ways, and using the new node controller to really elevate some of these assets and take them to the next level. So I'm really excited about this because this is a build that I don't think I would have been able to do a week ago. And it's taken me a while to learn the skills that I need to pull it off. So I'm excited about it. We're also going to go through our rail line basically around this bluff and make sure that it is as logical and sound as it can be. I know that in the rail tour a couple episodes back, there were a number of lumpies and bumpies, and we want to get rid of those. We want it to be smooth sailing if you take the train. But I want to do a couple of fixes before we get to that and discuss something that was mentioned in the comments. So, well, a number of things that were in the comments. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the train station and a mistake that I made. I got stuck in my own head and decided that it'd be really great to have some apartments backing right up to the train station. And there were a number of comments about this. And mixed use is not good everywhere, and this is a place where it's not good. I kind of got stuck in my own head, and I mentioned this a little bit even when I was looking at the actual station on Google Earth. So sometimes you just gotta get out of your own way. This isn't an example of me not doing that. So we're gonna rectify that. I'm gonna grab this building, turn Anarchy on, and place it. We'll place that right about here, and then I'm going to repeat this. So these are some commercial buildings. They are indeed a good fit here. So we will have them. There we go. And again, we'll pop back through here. Looks good back there. There is some access from this to the train station. I don't think that's a big deal though. And then we're going to take a look at this. This was also another residential property. And I've already converted this one to an office. And the reason why I wanted to do this is we got rid of all the residential properties that were butting up to the train station. And we've made a really strong mixed use node. So now we have commercial, office, and industrial all right here. And I think that's really exciting. So that across a variety of income levels, people would be able to work in this, regardless of the skills that they have, there would be a job for them. And I think that's really exciting. And these being industrial makes a ton of sense to me. Think of the mechanics that you would have working on the trains. So I think that that's really great. And the next fix I want to focus on is right here. So we have this ferry terminal and it has this sign, ferry line. I don't like it. We're going to get rid of that. So we go into Bob, come into here. We've got this ferry sign right here. I've already got it labeled. We're just going to take the probability down to nothing and then save that. And now we no longer have that sign. But we're not done here because there was a couple of comments talking about how it seemed like the train station wasn't working anymore. Well, it is working. It's just not working as well as it was before the ferry. See, we got 6 passengers served last week. That's not the full story. So we do have some folks coming here. There are still people getting on and off the train. We saw them getting off, and then they all appeared to be hopping on the ferry. You might wonder, why is that happening? It's pretty obvious when you zoom out. So sometimes you got to do this. Like, ask yourself, why are things occurring? So this ferry trip to Ashland is very, very quick. And it's connecting the densest area in the county to the second densest area and the densest part of this city. So it's a really short trip. It's a scenic trip. It's a nice trip as opposed to the train trip. So if you were taking the train, you come out here, you go through, you pass Shorewood, you can't go through it. And then you come up here, you go up the backside of this mountain, clip back through here, then you get to go and see Belmont for a while, then go through some fields, and then finally you get to Ashland. So this would be a very long trip. These are not high-speed trains, so maybe you get a maximum speed of 70, 75, but there aren't really many stretches where you're hitting that speed because of turns and stops. So that's a trip. It's probably competitive with an automobile, maybe, but it's certainly not as competitive with the ferry. So that's why that's occurring, and I'm okay with it. That said, there were some comments about my use of this ferry, and I agree. Having this ferry that carries cars when these terminals don't actually support that is a little bit weird. So we're gonna come in here, And I am going to switch it back to the normal ferry, but we can't leave it like this. This just isn't going to be good enough. These are 50 vehicles, so we'll come into here, we'll go and switch to our ferry, and we're going to update this. This is going to be 200 passengers, which to me is a lot more reasonable anyway. And now when we look at this, we pop back in here and look at our lines, look at the number 1 unlimited. These ferries now have 200 vehicles, or 200 passengers per vehicle, which is much better. So this is going to be busy. This is a ferry city now, a ferry community, and that's just the way it's going to be unless we fix the train, which we are going to do some work, but the type of fix I'm talking about would either be using a whole bunch of eminent domain and coming through Shorewood and, you know, really removing one of these roads here, the rights of way, and basically eliminating everything along it and sending the train up and then over the highway and then maybe along here to meet up with the train line. That's a possibility. We could elevate over the top in the commercial district. That's probably a little less likely. I just don't see that as a real possibility. I really think that it would be coming through and being at grade, taking out one of these roads. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know. I'm certainly willing to explore that, but that is certainly a project and one that would be incredibly controversial. So that's why we're not going there right now, but where we are going to go is right. And this is going to be an interesting project. So the very first thing I want to do, well, I'll introduce the assets in just a moment, but I want to get rid of what we've done, at least up to, we'll say right here. And now I could come through and use this. We'll see how the stop, yeah, it doesn't line up well. I'm going to make mistakes with this most likely. So I'm just going to go through and I'll delete these real quick. Okay, and this basically takes us back to square one, and I'm okay with it. These aren't very straight either. We should fix these. I know that some people were very troubled by the way that these weren't straight, and I am one of those people, so we're gonna fix that. So let's take a look at the assets that we're gonna use. I pulled some new assets in, and I'm very excited to show you these. So these are some older assets. They're these railway tunnels. So let me pull these out and you can take a look at them. Okay, so what we have here are some assets that we're going to be using today. So we have right here, it's a tunnel. Right here is kind of the side of a trench, and here's the other side with the cross beams that would go across for support, and then a one-line tunnel. So I think I overbuilt this coming through before, and I saw that in a number of comments as well, and I agree. So we're not going to go with a dual tunnel variant. We're going to have just a one-U tunnel, one train line coming through, and this is going to be a really interesting asset to use. So we're going to come through here, and you'll see that it clips to roads. So that tells me a couple of things. First of all, the instructions are very old. There are a number of mods that don't work anymore, so we're going to have to do something new. And what we're going to do that's new is we're going to kind of just use this. I'm going to come through. Let's turn off road guidelines. We're going to use the grid here and run a road right along here, because this is what we're going to snap to. And we're going to use this for our trench. So what I'm going to do now is grab this, line one up here, and then grab another one and do the same. And we'll save this for later. So there are a couple of ways that I could approach this build at this point. I could come through and I could just manually place these, or I could come through and use move it, grab these, make sure that snapping is on, and then clone, duplicate in place, and now they just kind of snap right into place. And that's the approach I'm going to take. I think it's a lot quicker and easier and predictable. So let's take care of that. You will see a couple of spots though where it's a little bit extended beyond. There's not much I can do about that right now. So we'll just need to work with it. A lot of that comes down to heights. The heights are just a little bit off, but all of the heights are off right now. So we're not going to worry about that. Let's not get too into the details right now, because we're going to have a lot of layering of networks as we build this. Okay, and I think that's pretty good. And I'm not even sure that we're going to be able to go this far back. We may need to delete a couple of these to make our transition occur. I'm going to leave that there now, and we'll see how that works. So here's where everything gets really interesting. So what we're going to do is select only nodes, and I think what we're going to try to do, we're going to pop into here and use our picker mod within move it, and try to use that to select everything here. Actually, I'm gonna go back on that. Let's grab this and use the road and select just this basic road. I'm gonna deselect that segment. We're gonna just drop this down. So I'm gonna come over to the side and drop this down, and I'm hoping it takes this width. It is not. So what are you gonna do? All right, well, we can still work with this. So this is a building, so I select this building, and now that's the one that's available. And I'm gonna come through here and select all of these, and I will Control H these to this height. So I'll have to add nodes again, move that down, and that height looks like it's nearly perfect. So I'm very, very pleased with how that turned out. So that makes the rest of this fairly easy. I got lucky there, I'll be honest. When I practice all my builds just to make sure that I know what I'm doing. Because the last thing you want to see is me struggling with this forever. So as I practiced this build, I went through and I did all of this manually. And it just takes a long time. So if you don't have to do that, I would highly recommend not doing that. Now we got the other side selected. Select all of those. Select buildings again. And then we'll Control H to the other side. And now you can see that this is dropped in the ground. It's in a pretty good place. There's some crazy stuff over here that we're gonna need to deal with. Maybe a little bit of imperfection over here, but in general, we're in a pretty good place. So now we're gonna use a bit of node controller and do some action there. And this is gonna be one of the most important parts. So we'll hop into the unified UI. I'm gonna add a node right about here. And I'm gonna leave that there. And then we'll come through here, select this, hold down Alt, and back this off just a little bit. So that is gonna be there in case we need to do anything with the tunnel. So we'll need to remove the cars, change the heights a little bit. You can see that there's a couple of issues here. We don't want it to show up, but that's okay. We can do that in just a moment. So I just went into the TMPE, held down Shift in this no parking area and just removed all of the parking from these streets so that we don't see any cars popping up. Really, this is just a guide for us, and that's what we're going to treat it as. So we've got that there, and I am going to pull this one through. There we go. So now it's hidden. It's there to keep everything flat. We are going to care about that in the future. Now what I'm going to do is try to figure out the train line situation. So we'll come through with our tracks, and I'm basically going to meet up here or close to here, maybe a little beyond, and add that track. Now we're going to need to add a node. Oh, it's already got the node there. That's perfect. So this node in particular, we are going to bump this back to about here, and I'm holding down Alt and it's still not snapping, which is really unfortunate. I'm going to Control H this down to the road. And now you see that we've got a nice slope down here. So that was the first thing that we want to do. Let's check our slopes. So this is the primary reason why I said I wasn't sure if we were going to come this far. We may need to take this out even just a little ways further. And interesting, I see that we're actually snapped to that road segment. So we're just going to get rid of it and we'll see if we can work without it. So this is one of the things that the mod creator recommended against. So keep that road in there just in case. But we're gonna fight the power, and we'll see if we get away with it. And just a reminder, all of these mods will be linked down in the description. And I'm trying my best to get this in the 3s. I think this is probably as good as it's gonna get. 3.5 is pretty steep, but we're coming into the station, so speeds would be expected to be a little slower anyway. So I'm okay with this. I'm not okay with how lumpy and bumpy and crazy it is. So I'm gonna redraw this with angle on, and hopefully we can get a straighter segment there. Whoa, and I'm gonna delete the entire line apparently. So, all right, angle, grid is on, and I'm gonna get rid of that road. I feel like that road is messing things up for us. We're not getting the benefit that the asset creator believed. I took out Mulligan Avenue. That's okay. We're gonna reestablish that anyway, so I'm not overly concerned. We'll call a Mulligan on Mulligan Avenue and bring it back in just a little while. So we'll meet up right there. That'll create that node there. We'll drop this down. And that's about where I need it to be. If we zoom in, I want to be able to basically see just the track, nothing else. And we're going to switch the track up when we get this going through the tunnel. So this will work just fine. So let's come through here, click on this, slope to here, 4.5. That is worse than we had before, but I think we're going to live with a little bit of imperfection. Now I'm going to use this railway, this concrete version of it. And the main reason we're going to do that, I'll have to come out of node controller, is it looks really good through here. Pull this all the way through. And as I say, it looks really good through here. It pops all the way up. So let me get that fixed. So now there are a couple of ways to make the outside of this look better than it does. And I think the way that we are going to focus on is a key wall, but not just any key wall. We are going to use the new big key walls, and there's a reason for that. So initially, I really thought about using the key wall that's in Ashland right now. That's along the beach. So that is this key wall. We'll take a look at what this looks like. Very attractive. When we pull it up, you see it's got the stonework here, and nice stonework on the top, benches and trees. Very attractive. The thing is, this is a key wall, for better or for worse. This right here, interestingly, is not a key wall. This is a road network piece. So that gives us a number of advantages. First of all, it's just easier to work with, and that's going to be a huge benefit for us. Second of all, it means that we can use the intersection marking tool on this. And since the new update, that's going to give us a ton of power and flexibility to do things like are done on this key wall, adding trees and benches and lights by adding intersection marking to this. And we can even add decals to this to make this decorative. So that's what we're going to go with. I also like that it's red instead of white. I feel like it matches the aesthetic of this area a little bit better. I am so excited to work on this. So let's turn off everything here, and I'm going to do something that you're going to probably think is a little crazy. So here's our little key wall. We're going to come through. Because this is a road, I can just pop that up here, reverse it like it's a road by using the right mouse button. And now, even though this is only one node, I'm going to come through here and just add this. And we're going to stretch. Now this is going to work incredibly poorly until I add additional nodes. In fact, it'll get worse and worse over time. Right now I have snapping on, which is why it's snapping all funky like that. Don't worry about that too much. We are going to resolve that. So I will Control H this to the intersection right here, which will bring this up. And you see we're already in a pretty good spot with this. Now it is clipping away. The main reason for that is it doesn't have enough nodes, so it is unhappy with us. So that's an easy fix. We have the unified UI. Let's get rid of that menu right there, pop into here, add some nodes. And truthfully, I may need to go a little bit high on this. So what I'll do is just pop this up maybe 5 clicks or 10. And let's go ahead and get some things added here. So I'm going to go at the intersections and try to add them in those locations. And it is very unhappy with what I've done. So we are going to need to go back to the drawing board on that. Okay, so we've got our little segment here. What I think we're going to do is just try to draw it in. This is going to be tough because it is a network and we have a whole bunch of networks here. So it's going to want to snap to all of those networks. So we are just going to come through here and do our own thing. We've got anarchy on, so we can draw that in fairly easily. And now we have some nodes. So we are going to need to slide some of these nodes over. We want them to line up as best as they can with the existing nodes. And this is going to be critical because we are going to want those heights to line up if they can. So as I go through and do this, I'm going to pop it out just a little ways so that it covers up the texture for the trench, the tunnel. And then we can click on that node, Control H, select the node right next to it, pop it up, and now it's basically perfect. And it looks like 6 is kind of the magic number that I need to make it line up really well. So I'm going to go through and complete the rest of this wall on this side, and we'll be right back. Okay, so now I've gone through and I've popped this up and down. We're gonna need to just really finesse this, looking down, up and down the road at each of our nodes. Now, one of the reasons I added nodes at most of these intersections is that's a natural place to set your heights. You can see that these are going to need to drop down just a little bit, so these weren't quite perfect. We'll need to change those just a little bit as well. Not a big deal, but that is going to impact our rail line, everything along here. But once we have this set up perfectly, it's going to be really, really nice. Okay, so what I decided to do was just select everything and drop it down 6 clicks, which is the amount that I raised up all my nodes. And that seems to have done the trick for me in most of these locations. Okay, so I had to make a number of fine adjustments. Truthfully, I may need to move the road just slightly too up and down. I think that's probably the more appropriate thing than trying to move that key wall. It's just a lot more challenging to move the key wall than it is to just bump the road over a little bit. And when our buildings have already been zoned in like this, it's probably not the end of the world when we have Rico. So there we go. We've got one side done. Now one more. The process over here is going to be the exact same. So we're going to run through. We'll add this right along here. In fact, road guidelines could be helpful here. Drop that right on. Looks pretty good. And now I'm going to turn angle on. Get rid of the guidelines in the grid. And what we're going to do is run this up. And eventually, we're going to run this over. And then back. And then tee into our road. And that's one of the great things about these being roads. We can just pop this right in. We can also do some really interesting things, like come into our slope terrain tool. So let's pop into there real quick. And you could slope that, theoretically. Not something that we need to do right now, so it's not working. So let's just go through here. I am going to need to pop in and adjust our latitude and longitude to be able to see it on this side. And we'll make some micro adjustments over here. I did turn off snapping now. So I think that that's helpful to be able to just pull this a little bit on my own. So we'll take care of this right now. Okay, and for whatever reason, this side was considerably easier to work on, and now I can just line this up with the other side, which makes it easy. I'll even line it up using the segments. Control H, select a segment, Control H, go for the one across from it. And now you can see that we've got this beautiful tunnel comes across. There's a couple of strange oddities in there. We'll need to deal with a bit of that. And some of that's just popping these down a little bit and finding the right height for the tracks. Okay, so I think this is looking pretty good. What's not looking so good now is we've got all these lumpies along here. So there are two solutions that we could use for this. So huge shout out to Will CS for this. He told me about some of the terraforming networks. So that's something that we could do. We could come through here, grab a 4U terraforming network. And this is basically a road that is invisible and allows you to terraform. And then we could absolutely grab this, Control H up to this, and then, you know, pop it up and make this look really good if we wanted this to be grass along the side. That is not, I think, our goal. We wanted this road to neatly line up. So what I'm gonna do is extend these roads out and line them up along the key wall. That said, I don't wanna lose all of my markings over here. So I'm gonna select this and extend these out just a little ways. So we'll turn everything back on, extend these out. And the main reason I'm doing that is I don't trust that I can pull this over and get this right. This would be my preferred way of doing it. Moving that node over, Control H, pull it up, and then see if I can get this to do the same thing. I'm wondering what the zoning looks like after that. Yeah, it's a mess. So that's my main concern there. So rather than doing that, we are gonna just eliminate these and rebuild them. It'll be considerably easier. Okay, so I wanted to get this road in place first. The primary reason for that is I know that this is going to be the difficult one to place, And the reason for that is because, of course, this Keywall is a road network. So the game desperately wants to clip to it. So if we get this lined up first, then we don't have to worry about that so much. So now we're in a good spot there, and we can just extend these roads on through. Okay, and that's not perfect, but that's pretty darn good. So I'm very pleased with that. We're gonna raise this up so that that lines up well too. And I talked about those invisible nodes. We're probably gonna use those right here, although we could now extend our grid a little bit beyond. I think that this is probably has a better use than more blocks of development. So maybe we'll save this for some city services, that sort of campus for those sorts of things. And for the time being, we'll come through with a 2U terraforming network. I'll make it as short as possible. Grab one of the ends, pull it right up here, grab the other end, bring it down there. You'll never know that that's there. I'll forget that it's there. So that's quite all right. We can even raise that up to make sure it's perfectly level. There we go. Look at that. That is really looking quite good in my opinion. Now let's get back to our vanilla tools, because we got to do a little bit of work here as well. We're going to use our slope terrain tool, take this down to a reasonable brush size, click on our top height, and truthfully, this is higher than it needs to be. So I'm going to take these and drop them down. I really want all those nodes to line up. Now we'll do our use our slope terrain tool, pick our top height here and slope up. Oh man, I'm really liking the way this is turning out. Let's hope I left enough space. That's a place where it could all go downhill very quickly. So what I'm gonna do is just try to cross my tracks in here, turn off all of these lovely things that it's giving me, and go by my lonesome, and we'll see how I do. So it's not perfect, but I think we can make it much, much, much better. And a big part of this is we've just got some interesting things happening here. You see, even when we click on these junctions and it slopes them, they look a lot better. But I think we can make them look even better than they currently do. So first of all, we'll come pull this one in. Here, we'll take this and stretch this one out. Pull that back, pull this back. And we'll do the same thing on the rest of it. Then if I slope these, some of those lumpies and bumpies that we're seeing will go away as well. And with this new node controller, we can stretch out that node and have a nice, clean turn down. It's already sloped, looking really good. This one's flat for whatever reason. We'll slope that one, pull this one back a little further as well. Yeah, that looks absolutely spectacular. So much better than before. I am just absolutely jazzed about this. So let's go ahead and grab our sand and throw that back in here. Or I should say gravel, not sand. And I'm gonna need to take my brush strength down. I didn't realize it was gonna clip through this roadway network, but if you get too close, it looks like it does just a bit. So that means we're gonna have to finesse this, maybe even bump this up a notch. Yeah, one notch seems to do the trick. We can bump up the road here. No one will ever be any the wiser. Very nice. Slid that concrete down. Everything's looking good except that our businesses have expired. So we see this education levels are too low. Something we certainly have to address. So there we go. This transitions nicely. There are a couple of lumpies and bumpies along here. I'm gonna try to let good be good and not let perfect be the enemy of good in this particular instance. I think these little bumps along the wall, if I played forever, I could maybe fix them. But I think it would be playing forever. So there we go. Let's get rid of, we've got some stuff over here. We'll get rid of this. And we could talk about this for just a moment. So one of the reasons that I think that the asset creator wanted you to keep the roads down there is just clip to the roads. They don't clip to rail. So we've got, we'll come back over and we'll select our snapping. Bring this over. And the main place I want to have these, so rotate this around, is if we're going to have a road crossing. So let's say we wanted a crossing right about here. This would be our support structure to have that crossing. So we're going to add a couple of places where we have crossings. There we go. We've got our support. I'm going to clone this and add in a couple more. Okay, so I've just spent a ridiculous amount of time working on this. So I initially tried to add some bridges over here, but what I realized is you kind of need a viaduct to go up and over this, or you need an arterial or a collector, a 4U road. The 2U roads just don't look right, and that's going to be a limitation of the assets I have available to me. So as a result, I've removed those. So this will be a very severed community for the time being. We may need to come up with a couple of solutions to get across here, but I think if we do anything, it's going to be things like a targeted pedestrian connection straight across here. So come through and just add this and call it a day. So I think that sort of solution makes a ton more sense here. The one thing you've got to be sensitive of is it looks like we have the actual asset popping up through here. So I gotta pull that up just a little ways. I just dropped it down, and now look, I'm bringing it right back up. So that is the actual structure popping up through. So we will get this fixed. But I think that that's an appropriate solution. It's not perfect by any means, but because it is a roadway network, we can use these pedestrian roads and make bridge connections across. And I do like that. That looks pretty nifty. Okay, I just went full let perfect be the enemy a good mode, and I love what I've done here. So I basically went through and ensured that this side of the road lined up with this side in terms of heights, and now we've got a really nice aesthetic. There's a couple places where it raises up over here. It's doing the same thing over there, so we'll let it go. So we are at the end of our tunnel now, and we've got some work to do. So what I want to do here is we're going to flare this out. Well, actually, before we move that, let's make sure we've got a node right in the middle of this highway here. So we'll pull this down, and there we don't have one. So I'm going to add a node here. Perfect. And we'll flare this out. And we can actually use this to adjust our heights if we wanted to. That is an option for us. And we are likely going to take that. We're going to add another node right here and sever this connection. And the main reason why is we're going to need some runway to be able to get this elevated over the top. So, well, we'll try one thing first. So I want to see if we can just go over the top of it. I don't think that's going to work very well. I think we're going to need to elevate up. Okay, so that's certainly something that we could do. If we are going to do this, though, I really think that we need to end these pedestrian connections earlier. So we'll hold Alt, pull that back. We'll do the same thing on this side. So our key walls end here then, right at our tunnel structure. And the fun thing that we can do with these now is actually send these back. And then I'll invert these segments. Delete this. I'm even going to get rid of that road, and we can pull this along here. So when you make it an angle segment, or when you add another segment onto this, it creates a nice sharp corner, and the aesthetic is really impressive. Now that we've done that, we could probably just drop this down, make it flat, not have it go up at all, and now it looks like it's just going over the top of this. We could have one more pedestrian connection over here, and I think it's going to be a really, really nice looking connection there. I'm going to send this right along here. Oh, there we go. There we go. I really, really like the way that this turned out. I am going to extend this and kind of mirror what we've done over here. And then I think that we're basically done with our key walls. There we go. Looking good. Now we are almost ready to make our rail connection. Finally. It has been one heck of a build to get to this moment. So what we're going to do here is this is going to be our top height. We will right mouse click up here. Our bottom height is down here. We'll pull that right back. And this is likely going to have to be a fairly sweeping turn to be able to get this angle to work right. We'll do the exact same thing over here. So they're definitely going to lose some speed up this way. And we're just going to go for it. We'll try to make our connection and adjust it as needed. And I'm going to remove this middle node. I'll add that back in later, but I am going to hold down Alt and get this to actually leave the tunnel appropriately. And then I'm going to go through and add a node again. The main reason for that is so that I can slope it and visually it won't corrupt then, but I find that to be a little bit easier to do then. So I now have this, I can back that out, pull this back a little ways, do the same thing here. We do have two different types of segments coming in, so that's something to be aware of. Not a huge deal, but it's a thing. We have an extra node there, and I can tell that right off the bat, so we'll get rid of that. Don't want that, that's just gonna confuse things for us. So bend and middle have dramatically different functionality now. So middle doesn't allow you to change the points, bend does. So something to be aware of. Now this is very steep, I'm very certain of it, and I don't know that I'm gonna be able to do a ton about it. Yeah, we're looking at pretty significant elevation change there. I guess this might be one way of handling it. I'll just have to select past. Now we're at 3, and then I can take this, go straight through, and that's much better. So a couple of wonky spots here now. Again, it's just finessing these until they look right. And then I'm gonna hit this once with my slope terrain tool. We've got a lot of stuff happening here, and I just think that smoothing it out a little ways wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Now, if we wanted to make this look perfect, I think that we come through, we can use our terraforming network, make a short segment through here, find this, we can pop this up. That's not perfect, but that might be a bit more reasonable. And we might just have to live with a bit of imperfection over here. I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side. And those terraforming networks are pretty nifty with what I'm able to do with that. Really like that. And that is super lumpy and bumpy. And you can see it as the trains go past. I'm wondering if I do select bend, it is sloping. Here it says it's sloping. It doesn't really feel like it is. Okay, so had to do a little bit more sloping here, but I think that the effect is worth it. Now we have a little bit less than a 3% grade over here and a little bit more than that on this side. And it's just absolutely stunning as long as you don't go into the upside down. I think that the effect that this has produced is really outstanding. So I wanted to do more train work in this episode, but I think we're gonna need to save some of that because I want to get to really the last thing that I really want to focus on, which is the new things that you can do with the intersection marking tool. So this right here will come, I think we'll find an easy spot to work with. This is now a network, it's a road. So if I click on this, I have lanes. And because I have lanes, I can do some really fun things. So I can come through here, draw a line, I can draw that dash. I don't know why I would do that, but the new thing, and Overcharge Egg pointed this out in his most recent video and really taught everyone, including myself, how to use it, so I appreciate that, Egg. We're gonna come through, add a prop, and I wanna look in particular for one prop. So we have all these planters, and we have on the ground planters, and I'm gonna spread this out 20 meters. And now I have some tree planters there, and I can move this over, shift it towards the road. Why don't we do that? We'll shift that over 1.5 meters. And now I'm gonna draw another line, and we're gonna go with a tree. And we're gonna go with our young linden, because why wouldn't we? I have young linden and then linden tree young. And then London plane tree young. I wonder, we'll take a look at that. That's actually really substantial. I like that. Let's go with that. The step will be 20 meters again. And then we will need to come through and offset this, shift this back. And this is really just kind of a visual inspection. There we go. So now we have these lovely trees in our planter boxes right there, looking perfect. But why stop there? We could come through, add this, and if we wanted to, add a decorative network. And we used these pavements before. We could come through here, add these, and shift these over. And then do the exact same thing right here. And voila. Now the one thing about this is it's very sensitive to height and terrains on things like this. So we would have to really play with this to make sure that everything works well. But look at that, they've got this totally custom piece here. And the great thing is we can come through back into this. We can Control-Shift-C, select another segment, Control-Shift-V, click it, and just go down the line. So we're gonna do that here. So here's where things get dicey. When you come around corners like this, you'll end up with some things. So this is as close to using procedural objects as I'll ever get. And you're gonna have to live with a bit of imperfection at this current time if you plan on doing some of what I just did. That said, I think I can deal. Because this is such a cool way to customize your city. I mean, this looks just outstanding compared to the way it looked before. Now, a couple of things that I've noticed. So if I want to go through, and I notice if I had a node here, I could make this line up perfectly. So I come through and I add a node right there. Look what we just lost everything. So just something to be aware of. You're gonna need to be careful, basically. That said, it's as easy as coming back through. We still have it saved. Pop it right back through. Not a big deal. Okay, so I've got all but I guess this last piece right here, and it's looking really good. Now it doesn't fully cover this up, and if we wanted to get it to be perfect, we would need to actually use our network that we used here for this, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good, and I'm really pleased with how it turned out. Now there are a couple of oddities, like right here I'm having some height issues. And with those issues, you can kind of see as I bump the road up and down a notch, you're going to end up doing that a whole bunch to get things to be perfect. I would say that that's a pretty mild price to pay for what you're getting. So if that's the cost of entry, I'm in, because this is awesome. I just love this. This is absolutely fantastic. I would have never been able to make something like this a week ago. So from a quality of life sort of update, the ability to unleash your creativity and do something totally off the beaten path in terms of someone not using procedural objects, this is basically it. This mod has really taken it to the next level. And the interesting thing is, I feel like for both this mod and for Node Controller, in the last week, the last couple of updates basically took the training wheels off. Because before this, I feel like the mod creator was saying, you know, we trust you, you're doing a good job, but we're gonna leave a couple of constraints in there so that you don't go too wild. And now those are completely gone, and you can do whatever you want. And that's amazing. So that said, there are gonna be issues like this. See them, gotta just work around it, and it's okay. These are going to require a lot of patience, ultimately. And if you have the patience, you can get some really interesting designs. And ultimately, you're going to have to forgive some things. Now with this, what I think I could do is come through and I have my network. to something like this, I'd probably have to play with it a bit more to get it to be perfect. And there's going to be a little bit of imperfection there, but I think that that's probably the way you'd want to handle that. And maybe coming through here, and I think that if I come through, and I wonder, node controller, that actually be the way? Yeah, I could use node controller to clean some of this up as well. So that's probably the best way to completely clean some of this stuff up. I don't know that you can fix everything. Like I come through this corner here, and it's just not going to be happy with that. So there's no way to fix that. So, you know, accept the limitations. I wonder if I take this and I make this custom, maybe I could end it a little bit sooner. That's the other option. None of it really seems to be working well though. So corners are tough. You can use network props to fix things like that, but just be aware of the limitations. Okay, and I'm guessing a number of you noticed that I put the trees on the wrong side of this key wall. I want to assure you that I've fixed it. That triggered me the moment I realized it, and I'm sure a number of you are sitting there thinking, oh, he's doing it to me again. He's doing it to me again. I promise I've got it fixed. So in the next one, it's going to look good. In the save file, it's going to look good, but it will look bad the rest of the episode, and I apologize. All right, back to it. So there is one more thing that I need to do, and that is look at this train and look at our line. So the reason I want to do this is I've been looking at the trains. These are too long. And the one that I think we need to switch this out to is the CityLink Evergreen. The reason for that is if we take a look, so this extends outside of the platform. That's because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 passenger carts on here. So the Evergreen train is actually only 4. So I think that that's going to solve it for us. Let's pop into our transit, look at our trains, and we'll switch these all to the Evergreens. And with that, I do think we need to hop on down, admire our work, and have a brief city tour. Okay, so that was just a brief city tour, but now we get to enjoy the area at night, and you can see that there's a little bit of light down here, but not a lot. You get to see the trains in their full glory, and check this out, just absolutely gorgeous. We get this new excellent pedestrian facility. Not a lot going on now. We got, oh, that was a bird. So there's really no one using this right now, but I still think that this is going to be really valuable at some point in time. I could see a ton of commercial activity being in this area, or just lots of residential, truthfully, with this being an excellent pedestrian feature, a way to get to the train station or just recreate. And sometimes it's just nice to have those sorts of opportunities. So I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. This has been one heck of an episode. There's still some issues that we're going to need to resolve. I think that we're going to need to take a look at those the trains that I mentioned around this. I think I underestimated just how long this would take and how difficult it would be, but all good things take time, and this is a very good thing in my estimation. The trains too, we can see that these are fitting significantly better. They're right inside the track now, or right inside the terminal. So I think that we're in a good place. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please hit the like button. If you are not subscribed, please consider doing so. And I really can't wait to see you in the next one. I want to thank you all for your suggestions. I would not have taken this project on without all of the comments. I know that I don't have the opportunity to respond to each and every one of them, but do know I'm looking at them and I am taking your advice. So thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.